And good afternoon. It is Friday, and that means it's time for our Lunch and Learn. Now, today we're going to be talking about statins and how statins can actually increase your risk of certain viruses. Now, I'm going to have to be very careful in what I say because you don't want to say those words that tag you and get you thrown off and get your video deleted, so you guys know what I'm talking about. But this report comes from a lady that wrote a book, and she is looking at different statistics and how those statistics lean either this way or this way toward getting the virus. So I thought it was very interesting, and we're all about knowledge here because knowledge is power. The more you know, the better you can do. And so I always think that, I may have done something wrong in the past, but I just didn't know any better. But when I know better, I can do better. So the hypothesis that this report starts with is that as a population, the United States has been set up to be very vulnerable to communicable diseases. And she says that the reason for this is because so many of our population, certainly our aging population, are on statin drugs. Now, if you don't know what a statin drug is, it is what the doctor recommends that you take to lower your cholesterol. So all of this came about around, don't get me lying to you because I'm not quite sure of the date, but it was around 1970 in that general vicinity where they decided, based on a Framingham study that has never been able to be replicated, just want to throw that out there. It's been disproved because it's not been able to be replicated. However, that study showed that if people lowered their cholesterol, that they would not have as high of a risk of cardiovascular disease and dying from a heart attack. Now, I'm going to give you some statistics, and you're going to go, oh my gosh, we've just been duped. And so that's kind of an opinion that people have. However, we're going to talk about what cholesterol does, why you need it, why people with very low cholesterol have problems. People with very high cholesterol usually don't die from that. All right, so that's contrary to what you may have been told. And so before the Framingham study came out, I think the cholesterol was about, they wanted you to be around 220 to 240. Now, your medical doctors are going to tell you they want you to be around 100. Now, I'm just telling you, as a holistic practitioner, if your cholesterol is at 100, your total cholesterol, that's your good and your bad, you are going to be in a world of hurt. Now, I want to show you, get your phone out, because I want you to do a screenshot here, okay? I'm going to show you this. I'm going to put it closer in a minute. This is called the metabolism of selected steroid hormones. So at the very, very top here, you've got cholesterol. And then you've got this branch, this branch, this branch, this branch, okay? And what you've got here is at the very bottom, you've got estrogen here, you've got testosterone here. So the sex hormones are at the bottom of the food chain. So go ahead and get your phone out so you can screenshot this, because this is a really important diagram. You have to have enough cholesterol in order to make all those hormones. And those are not only all of the hormones that are made, but those are the primary steroid hormones that are cleaved from cholesterol. I believe every single hormone is cleaved from cholesterol. Cholesterol is a 28 atom molecule, and just the way the body cleaves those molecules, it makes those various forms of hormones. So if you are young and trying to get pregnant and dealing with infertility issues, you really want to know what your cholesterol is, because if your cholesterol is very, very low, you're not going to have enough cholesterol to go around. Why is that? Because your brain is made up almost 100% of cholesterol. You need that. Every single cell in your body has a cell membrane, and it is made up of cholesterol. And so your body is going to feed your brain first, and it's going to feed your cells first. It's going to make your hormones last. So if you are fighting fertility issues, having your cholesterol not be in the right space could be part of the problem. Now, your medical doctor is not going to tell you that. They're just not going to. But anyway, that's just something that you need to know. Now, you've got three parts of your cholesterol number. So you've got your quote-unquote bad cholesterol, which is called LDL. You've got your quote-unquote good cholesterol, which is HDL, and then you've got triglycerides. Now, if we have the mind and the world view, like I have, I think God is really good, and I think God made us to be 100% well. Why would God make us make a bad cholesterol? See, that doesn't make any sense to me. So in this Framingham study, the Framingham study said that the bad cholesterol caused cardiovascular events and caused heart attacks. So I want to disabuse you of that notion. Your body makes bad cholesterol because you have long-term inflammatory processes. So you've got metabolic disease, you may be too heavy, okay? You may have diabetes, you may have cancer, you may have any kind of autoimmune. All of those are inflammatory diseases. When we have chronic inflammation, our bad cholesterol is going to be very high because that is the body's natural response to inflammation. It kind of is like a fire hose at a fire. It puts out the inflammation. So now, do I want you to have 600 cholesterol? No, I do not. I do not. I want your cholesterol to be around 200, maybe 220. I've got a colleague that says if you're over 50, it can be 200 plus your age, and you're still going to be okay. So just to give you a frame of reference on that. So I don't want your cholesterol to be extremely high for sure. What I want to do is modulate your cholesterol and see what's going on in your liver, because your liver makes cholesterol. And if your cholesterol, your overall number is very, very low and you're not taking a statin, then your liver's not processing properly. If you are taking a statin drug and your cholesterol is very, very low, then you're going to have problems making your hormones, and you're going to have problems specifically with your sex hormones. So one thing that we found out going through the timeline, that when they started reducing your cholesterol after 1970, 75, something like that, the need for Viagra went up. Why is that? Because we were pushing cholesterol down, and there was not enough cholesterol to make testosterone, so we had to have another chemical to kind of boost you in that area. So there is cause and effect, and there are side effects on our hormones. And so we're going to talk about, we're going to get in the nitty-gritty with cholesterol, why it is important for so many physical functions, and why it's detrimental to your health, and why you are more susceptible to sickness and disease if your cholesterol is low. Now, I do not know why, knowing as I know that cholesterol is a major factor in health. I do not know why your medical doctors do not always get your cholesterol numbers, but they don't. We have people come in, they'll have a metabolic panel, they'll have a CBC. They don't always have the differential with the CBC, and they don't always have the lipid panel. I want all three of those. I want your CBC with differential, I want your metabolic panel, and I want your lipid panel, because that gives me a real overview of what's happening in your body in the chemical area, and that's what blood work is all about. It is about your chemistry. So back in 2019, we all know what happened, and we all know that there was great fear and there were quite a few deaths. And this author says that it was the weakening of people's defenses because they were on cholesterol drugs. So statins have been the most common prescription in the United States for decades. And in 2013, the American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association recommended that everyone between the ages of 65 and 75 who were at elevated risk of cardiovascular disease, which is almost everyone because of what we eat and we're all overweight, they would be prescribed a statin drug. By 2019, statins were a $10 billion market. Over 92 million people, which is 35% of the United States population, were taking statin drugs. The number is a threefold increase from the previous decade. So by 2020, the United States ranked 6th in the world for statin use. In 2019, the American public was about to be saturated with statins as we never had been. The unintended result of the statin saturation rendered seizures vulnerable to the devastating outcomes of the virus that we were all fighting. The cumulative vulnerability, which peaked in 2019, represented the lowest point of collective immune capability. And those extremes crested right before, you know what happened then. Statin drugs lower a person's cholesterol, and cholesterol is not a luxury, but is a necessity for forming the vitamin D molecule, which is the conductor, so to speak, of the human immune system. Now, when you're looking at your medical report, when you're looking at your lab work, it's going to say with vitamin D that your reference range should be 30 to 100. So if you are 30, your doctor is going to think that you're just fine. Holistically, we know that we want that number to be above 70 because vitamin D has so many important functions in your immune system. And so I grew up on the lake. I grew up outside. And so you would think with all the sun exposure that I had that I would not have a vitamin D deficiency. But I do not want to tell you, but a few years ago, probably 10 years ago, I took my blood work and my vitamin D was like 18. And it was like, oh my God, how am I even alive with my vitamin D that low? And so I took some very stringent measures to get my vitamin D up. And I'm an outside girl. You know, I stay outside. Well, I stay outside 24/7, but I have been used to being outside. I enjoy being outside. And yet my vitamin D was precariously low. So your vitamin D is produced by your skin when your skin is in contact with the sun or exposed to the sun. It is in the liver and then also in the kidneys. So actually, whenever you take a vitamin D supplement, the kind of supplement you take is really, really important because if you take an oral supplement, you swallow it, it goes down, the stomach acid chews it up, then it goes through the first pass of the liver that further degrades your vitamin D, and then the blood will take whatever is left over into your kidneys where it is absorbed. So that's a long way to get to where it needs to be. And so that's why if you are going to the doctor and the doctor will prescribe you a vitamin D, it's probably 50,000 IUs that you take once a week. And that feels excessive and sounds excessive, but when you understand that you need 10,000 IUs to stay current, so if I'm 70 on my vitamin D, if I'm at a 70, then I'm going to need 10,000 IUs every single day in order to maintain that. Now, the vitamin D that I use, ta-da, is here. It is a spray. It is a liposomal spray. That means it is biotagged to go where it needs to. And you can see that I have lipstick on it. So you could tell that it's mine, that I really use it. And I take it and I spray it inside my cheek. That's why it has lipstick, because I get in there. And I give myself at least 10 sprays a day because you need 10,000 IUs in order to stay current. And one spray is equal to 1,000 IUs. Now, why is this important? This is important because there's no degradation of the vitamin D and it doesn't go through the stomach, so it doesn't get eaten up by the hydrochloric acid, and it doesn't go through the liver. So you get 100% of what you paid for goes into your cell. It goes right into the mucous membrane in my cheek or under the tongue, and it goes right into the bloodstream that way. So you can get 100% of what you are doing. Now, we know that clinically, when people come in and they have a low vitamin D number, we'll give them this product, and within 60 days, their number has probably doubled. I mean, it depends on what they come in with and that kind of thing. If you're at 50, we need you to be at 70. We don't necessarily need you to double that, right? But if you're at 18, like I was, we don't need you just to double it. We need to double and triple and quadruple and all that kind of thing because I was very, very dangerously short. So the studies that were done in 2019 showed that people with low vitamin D were very much more affected and very much more seriously affected by the virus that was around at that time. So vitamin D is the gateway to the proper functioning of your immune system, and it is absolutely crucial for battling viruses. There are over 130 study references to vitamin D's role in virus and other infectious diseases in both treatment and prevention. Now, this lady, Colleen Huber, wrote a book in 2021 called The Defeat of You Know What, okay? And she says, a quote in there is, both those with higher blood lab values for vitamin D and those who supplemented with vitamin D squashed the virus much more readily with respect to lower hospitalization and lower deaths than those who avoided vitamin D or who were deficient in it. Hundreds of studies and meta-analysis have shown this to be the case. Vitamin D preemptively defeats the virus and other respiratory and viral illnesses, especially when dosed or produced in the skin from sunlight early and regularly. Now, if you're going to get your sunlight and you're going to get your vitamin D from sunlight, then you want to go out, depending on where you live in the world, okay, so be smart about it. You want to go out probably between 10 o'clock in the morning and noon, or you want to go out between 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 6. We don't really want people outside when it's extremely hot between noon and 4 o'clock. So you want to make sure that your doctor, when he does your blood work, gets your vitamin D levels. I have heard physicians say, well, vitamin D doesn't matter and we don't want to spend the money. Honestly, on your lab work, vitamin D costs about $30. If you have to pay it yourself, pay it yourself. I'm just telling you, it's not that expensive, and it is a biomarker that you need to know. So the average age of death during the virus issue was 81, which is 2 to 3 years past the U.S. life expectancy. So the virus very disproportionately affected seniors, especially those with obesity, type 2 diabetes, those that were smokers and had 2 or more comorbidities. Now, those other comorbidities could have been COPD, could have been an autoimmune disease, could have been cancer, all that kind of thing. So the virus morbidity and mortality in the United States far exceeded worldwide numbers. The United States has 4% of the world's population, but 33% of the world's deaths in 2020, okay? The United States also had by far the greatest number of diagnosed viruses than any other country, over 103 million. The next country was India with 44 million. So we had 103 and they had 44, so in the millions. So one of the things we talked about early on part of our older videos, which may have been taken down because, you know, I said the C word and that kind of thing. But one of the things that we talked about was the way that they diagnosed at that time in 2019 and 2020. And they did that PCR test, and they did very much more cycles than they were supposed to, which meant that everybody that was tested got a positive result, or probably 99% of those tested. There may have been the odd one out, but the PCR test was very unreliable, and it gave a lot of false positives. So if you want to go back and look in the videos, you'll find all the scientific data on that, because we put that on there. The United States had 1.1 million deaths. Our world in data, I don't know if y'all followed that back in the day. I did. I had it on my computer, and I was looking at the statistics every day because I was trying to figure out, are we dying? Is the whole world coming to an end? And I saw quite a few anomalies across that. So that program showed that the United States, with more viral deaths per capita than any other country, was nearly tied with the UK and Italy as of March of this year. So the beat goes on, as they say. So death and morbidity from the virus were augmented due to the medical system's ignorance and incompetence about cholesterol, which has to do with the statin drugs, and lack of vitamin D. So Upton Sinclair once said, "It's difficult to get man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it." Now, I don't know if you remember who Upton Sinclair was, but he wrote a book. It was about the food processing industry in the United States in the 1920s. I think it was called The Jungle. And it talked about all the corruption with the FDA and that kind of thing. It's a very gruesome book to read. However, if you want to know what's going on with the FDA and that kind of thing, it would be very eye-opening. One of the most gruesome parts that I remember was a man was in a meat packing place in the factory, and don't know how it happened, but the machinery chopped off his thumb. It went into the vat with the meat that they were processing, and they just processed it and sold it to the rest of the public. So the point is, you never know what you're getting because all kinds of accidents happen and that kind of thing. So in relation to what he said, we have to understand that the statin prescriptions, because there are so many, $10 billion, that's a lot of incentive to prescribe that medication because you just have to follow the money. It is too lucrative and it is too inconvenient to question the, quote, cholesterol bad, statin good mantra if you are in the pharmaceutical industry. And so that's something that we really need to think about. It's something that we need to ask ourselves whenever the doctor says, you need to do X, Y, Z, we need to say why. You know, what is the benefit and what can I do naturally and what can I do holistically? So it's much easier to demonize cholesterol than it is to figure out what cholesterol is doing in the body and how you can get it in appropriate, measures in your body. So again, it is significant to every cell in the body. Your liver makes it about 75% to 80% of our cholesterol if we don't get it through our diet. Now, back in the day, and I can't remember the timeline, but we were told that eating eggs were bad because they were full of cholesterol. Well, eating eggs are full of cholesterol, but it is the good kind of cholesterol. And so if you don't eat eggs because of cholesterol, you have been misinformed. So your body needs cholesterol. It needs a lot of cholesterol. 20% only will come through food. And that could be because we just have a very bad diet. Cholesterol carried by the LDL cholesterol is particularly valuable because it is the major vehicle by which cholesterol is carried into the cells. Now, again, cholesterol is needed in the cells when there are inflammatory processes going on. What is an inflammatory process? Well, anything that hurts is inflammatory. So if you cut yourself and your skin kind of pusses up and raises up and gets red, that's an inflammatory process. Now, that is an acute inflammatory process, which is needed so the immune system can close up the skin and you can go on to live another day. Chronic inflammation, on the other hand, is inflammation that just will not go away. And so it's like your house being on fire and nobody's doing anything to put the fire out. So we need to have that. Cholesterol keeps the cell membranes supple and strong while enabling essential signaling transduction that life requires. I'm going to break that down for you. Signaling transduction is you eat a food, that food, those nutrients are worked on by enzymes. Those enzymes turn those nutrients into different other chemicals that can receive impulses, and they give off impulses, and they tell the body what to do and what to make and how to stay healthy. So when you don't have cholesterol, then you're not able to do that. Now, one of the measures that we do here in the clinic, we do EAV testing, and it is a electronic measurement point of your acupressure points, your main acupressure points. One of those acupressure points is called cellular communication. Now, what does that mean? Are your body's processes doing what they need to do in order that transduction is going to take place? And sadly, in many of the clients that come in here, that is not happening. So think about someone with MS. Think about someone with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and that kind of thing. they may be working too hard, their body's working too hard, and they're having all kinds of different side effects because they're not being modulated properly by cholesterol the way they need to. So this is really, really important because you have to have by nuclear magnetic resonance imaging. It shows that cholesterol is required for the essential flow of signaling proteins. Without signaling among our cells, the body would have no means to sustain life. Conversely, one definition of death might be the end of the cooperative interaction and signaling among the cells of the body. What causes that signaling? Our friend cholesterol. All right, so we need to look at what's going on with the cholesterol numbers. We need to look at, is it the high cholesterol that is the quote-unquote bad, and we need to address the inflammation, or is the good cholesterol too low, which means we need to look at the liver function. So cholesterol is really, really abundant in our central nervous system. When cholesterol is lowered, it damages cognition. This is why you have a lot of your seniors who are having dementia and different things, because they're not getting the signaling molecules in their brain because they don't have enough cholesterol to go around. Now, there was a study in mice as well as humans, and it said that there was a positive linear association between total cholesterol and measures of verbal fluency, attention, and concentration, abstract reasoning, and a composite score measuring multiple cognitive domains. So in layman's speak, that means if you don't have enough cholesterol, you're going to have mental problems. You're going to have brain fog. You're going to have cognitive decline and that kind of thing. So we want to know also that low cholesterol numbers are associated with a higher risk of Parkinson's disease, and nobody wants that. Higher cholesterol is coordinated with a lower risk of Parkinson's disease. So cholesterol is also necessary to digest our foods, and it is the main source of bile acids. Now, for all of you who have had your gallbladder removed, you do not have enough bile acids in order to digest the fat that you eat. So your liver makes the bile acids. It goes through the common bile duct over to your gallbladder, which you don't have anymore. The gallbladder holds it. It's like a purse. It holds it. And so when you eat a fried meal or a fatty meal, it releases the bile. The bile acts like soap, breaks down the fat so that your body can use it. Your body cannot use dietary fat unless it has been emulsified by the bile. Cholesterol makes bile. So if your cholesterol is low, you're going to have problems with bile production if you still have a gallbladder. If you do not have a gallbladder, you're going to thank me for telling you this, because you can go to any health food store and buy a bottle of ox bile, and what it will do, it will act like you still have a gallbladder. It will emulsify the fats that you are eating, and you could lose 10 to 15 pounds in 2 weeks if a weight issue has developed because you're not digesting your fats because you don't have a gallbladder. So you can thank me for that. The cholesterol is necessary for our sex hormones. We talked about that. Cholesterol is necessary for proper adrenal function. Now, on my paper, I've lost my paper, on my steroid hormones, right? Cholesterol is up here, right here, but cortisol is right here. Excuse the finger, but cortisol is right here. Now, that's pretty far down the food chain. All right, there's something called the pregnenolone steal, so you can go and look at our videos to talk about that. But what we want to talk about today is that if your cholesterol is too low, your adrenal function is going to be off, because you need cholesterol in order for your adrenals to work properly. Now, your adrenals are your glands that make your stress hormones, your adrenaline, your cortisol, your I can't remember all the different ones, but it makes quite a few. If we are in a state of constant stress, which I will just tell you, I tend to stay in a state of constant stress, not because my life is horrible. My life is actually very good, but I deal with sick people every day. And of course, in the last month, we've had horrendous weather and flooding. And as a child, I grew up on the lake and we had flooding. And so I tend to make a lot of cortisol. You don't want to make too much cortisol because it causes you to be in that negative feedback loop. And so for that reason, I keep this supplement on my desk. It's called Cortitrol. Control your cortisol. All right. I sleep much better, and I can tell in 20 minutes that my stress level has resolved. Now, I'm just going to tell you, you can see this bottle is almost empty. And I keep this on my desk, and I go through the bottle quite frequently because I'm managing my cortisol because I just know that I need to. Now, my cholesterol numbers are fine. They're perfect. There's nothing wrong with my cholesterol numbers. It's just, we just live in a high-stress environment. We all do. So, how do the statin drugs work? Well, the statin drugs work by stopping the production of the LDH cholesterol, but also it stops the enzyme that is necessary to form cholesterol. It is called the HMG-CoA reductase. All right, it is in your blood and in your liver. Without this enzyme, we do not produce cholesterol. Statins are especially effective at reducing the LDL cholesterol. So, as I said, the common knowledge that we all think bad cholesterol is bad is not true. Dr. Aseem Mahodia is the UK's most recognized cardiologist, and he says about LDL cholesterol, it is a useless biomarker in terms of predicting someone's risk of heart disease, and therefore we should not obsess about lowering it. Now, he is the most well-known cardiologist in the UK, and he says, don't even worry about your cholesterol because it just doesn't make any difference. I think in his book, and I know I'm running out of time, in his book, in the study, it showed that if you did lower your cholesterol and you did take the statin drugs, that you would live longer. Over a 5-year period, you would live 4 days more. So the negative effect of lowering your cholesterol does not equal the benefit of living 4 more days, in my opinion. So this enzyme, right, the HMG-CoA, affects our CoQ10 enzyme, all right? CoQ10 reduces the flow of the downstream pathways. The problem with reducing CoQ10 is that doing so impairs your mitochondrial function because CoQ10 is key in the electron transport chain, which is required for ATP production to keep the body alive. So let me break all that down for you. CoQ10, and it is a liposome, okay? It's golden color. It's beautiful. I love it. CoQ10 causes all of that enzyme function to be able to do what it needs to do so that your body can do the repairs that it needs to do. I will also tell you that CoQ10 plus another supplement that we have, if you put it in your mouth, it will help reverse the receding gum issue that so many older people have. And I just wonder if the older people, and we used to have a saying called you're a little long in the tooth. We used to have that saying because the statin drugs are reducing the CoQ10. So the CoQ10 is essential for ATP production in your mitochondria. Your mitochondria are the engine of each of your cells, and if the mitochondria doesn't work, the ATP doesn't work, then you are going to die. So I am out of time. I've got a few more pages, but I'm out of time. I've given you the gist of it. I want you to take away that nobody needs to be doing statin drugs. If you look on my website, Heil-Mealey.com, there is a research paper put out by MIT. All right. If you look at that research paper, it will explain in very scientific terms how statin drugs hurt you rather than help you. So you want to get that resource so that you can be informed. The second thing, you want to make sure that you have CoQ10, you're doing that, and you are doing your vitamin D in a way that is bioavailable to your body, because without these two things, your body's not going to work right, and cholesterol lowering drugs robs you of these two nutrients. So that's what I want you to take away. If you live a very stressful life, you want to get Cortitrol because it's absolutely amazing and you can feel the effects in about 20 minutes. So we know it works because we can feel it, right? So if you have any questions, something was not clear, pop it in the comment box and we'll get back to you. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for doing all the things that you do. And it is the weekend. So what is the watchword for the weekend? Self-care, recover, recuperate, refresh. And I will see you next week.